Well, in 2015, when elections were postponed, security agencies, they gave the timeline in terms of when it was going to be conducted. The same thing we've seen in Edo, the timeline was given when it was going to be conducted, also being mindful of the law. So when did your own security report give the date as to when the elections will be conducted?
As of that time, there was no date fixed because when we went back in July, there were lots of skirmishes and we're monitoring the situation. Apart from the security agencies, we also employ a tool, an electoral risk management tool. And our people, and in consultation with CSOs and other groups, get security reports from all nooks and corners of the particular area that we're going to conduct the elections. So there was certainly no timeline, but let us just monitor the situation from day to day and see how it went. That's what happened in this particular case of Rivers.
So what's your response to the comment by the Senate that INEC is in breach of the law?
Well, you do know that the divisions and the functions of governance and states. We have the legislature, we have the executive, and we have the judiciary. It is for the judiciary to say when a person or an institution has breached the law. It's a question of interpretation of the law. That's all.
Okay, give us your interpretation then. When is the time stipulated for INEC to conduct elections into those legislative positions?
If there's a vacancy arising after the House is constituted, the Constitution says that you should conduct it within 30 days of the occurrence of that vacancy. If it's a court order in other places, it can be 60 days, it can be 90 days, as ordered by the court. So it varies from one constituency to the other. And but don't forget that the Electoral Act, I think it's Section 26, permits the Commission to postpone an election where there is a likelihood of a breakdown, where there has been a breakdown or a likelihood of breakdown of law and order, where there's an emergency. So that also has the Commission empowered to do that.
Did they say postpone elections indefinitely?
It did not say to a date to be determined by INEC, to a future date to be determined by the Commission. Yes, it gives the Commission that discretion. Till that emergency passes or that situation which led to the postponement passes in the opinion of the Commission, in the discretion of the Commission. Yes.
And so, yeah.
We're seeing on front pages today that INEC has finally put a date for that election. How true is that?
Yes, correct. We issued a statement. It preceded the resolutions of both the House of Representatives and the Senate. Of course, resolutions of those of the National Assembly have to be taken seriously. They do. But we had been in consultation with all stakeholders, and the leadership of the respective committees of the House of Representatives and of the Senate had been actually so informed. That is why, if you follow the debates in the House of Representatives, the chairperson of the House Committee on Electoral Matters and CSO did say that she had been in touch with the leadership of the Commission. Similarly, the Senate chairman of the Committee on INEC did say, and that is why the resolution, if you follow that resolution very well, initially the prayer was that the all elections should hold or be concluded before the end of November. But when the chairman intervened and told him that the INEC had already fixed 10th of December, that is when the Senate in its resolution extended that period, amending the prayer, extended the period till 10th of December, which had already been fixed by the Commission. So we're working in harmony with the National Assembly. No idea of confrontation or anything like that.
Well, there are questions. I mean, there are people who say that, confidence is beginning to get eroded in INEC. That people's confidence in INEC is beginning to wane. Are you aware of this opinion? Is INEC aware of it? And what are they doing to ensure that, they restore confidence in the people?
Yes, perception is quite important. We've heard that opinion, but first of all, where is that coming from? Very often, it starts from the political class who have their own partisan interests, and I think it's a determined effort to undermine confidence in the Commission. Unfortunately, that is picked up by less discerning minds and other people who see one or two things but don't know the background. And that's why I'm here. For example, when you know the background, and we try to, it's important we do build confidence with the people, but there's so much you can do to do that. And appeal to those who deliberately try to undermine the whole.
So,
the whole
for
thing.
instance, INEC has had, quite a number of inconclusive elections. In some instances, people are still going to court over the details of the outcomes of some elections. For instance, in Edo State, we saw what happened, what transpired when the results were being collated. There were questions, and eventually INEC, went ahead to declare a winner. You also find in Rivers situation where INEC has not been able to conduct elections, and all of this potpourri of issues are beginning to, make people ask: is INEC really capable of conducting this present INEC? Is it capable of conducting elections?
Well, that's a familiar refrain, because I do know that in Ekiti, in Osun, for example, preceding the 2015 elections, similar questions were asked about the previous commission as constituted, and said, if you over-militarized elections, how are you going to do that in 2015? So questions are always being asked, and we have to look at, let's take inconclusive. What are the reasons for inconclusive elections? And as an electoral management body, we do manage the logistics of the process. We don't manage the security. We work in conjunction with others who have the statutory and constitutional responsibility to do that.
So you're blaming the security agencies for this?
It's not a question of blame. If the politicians acted properly in the first place, then the security agencies will not have something to do. So don't blame people who are trying to correct the situation. Put the blame where it squarely lies.
Which is where?
In case of inconclusive elections, violence and management and arresting the violence that leads to disruption of the process. So you have to understand that.
But there's always been violence in the electoral history of Nigeria.
If you deal with that, then the other issues is a domino theory.
Mr. Uzzi, there's always been violence in the history of Nigerian election, whether it was the time of the NCNC, the Action Group, all to the time of the PDP, the UPN in the early 80s. And the only time we didn't see much of that violence was when we had that two-party system of the SDP and NRC. There's always been violence, and people wonder. That is why they're qualifying this leadership by saying this INEC. They still think that we've had more than enough inconclusive elections in the history of Nigeria put together with this INEC on this election.
Let's put this in perspective. There were about 80 elections nullified from 2015 general elections. Why were they nullified? Because INEC made a return when it ought not to have made a return. So a lot of them, the courts and the tribunals felt that these elections ought to have been inconclusive. In places like Ida State constituency, because of one unit. So, and this leadership did not come on board until November. They did not conduct 2015. So, secondly, when you look at things, the perspective is that there has hardly ever been two serious competitive parties in the country throughout this period you're referring to. Elections have become a lot more competitive. Previously, they were what we call landslide victories. And when there are landslide victories, so it doesn't matter if you cancel in this place or in that place, it did not affect the overall result of the elections. Furthermore, the laws which we operate with are different. So the 79 Constitution is different in material perspective in this regard from the 99 Constitution, from 1963 Constitution, or 1960 Constitution. So when you do things, you also have to take a historical analysis. You also have to look at the legal analysis of and situate things properly. So yes, they've always been violence. One, has violence been as widespread, and two, have the parties been as competitive as they are today.
Yeah, but Mr. Osaze-Uzzi, in Edo State, it was also very competitive, and some of the lists we saw when INEC published the names of the governorship candidates, you put some of them, including that of the PDP, that was in parentheses there, you indicated that pending or if the court decides otherwise, you were going to act. So that was put it there, but you went ahead with the elections. And so they then wonder, how come 8 months after, in spite of the fact that we always see that police, security agencies deploy about 5,000, they have that capacity, yet the elections are not going on.
I'm a little bit confused as to your question, quite honestly. There was one candidate who we referred to as being put there by court order because there was a court, he obtained a court order. So
yeah, but what I'm saying is
correlation between that and the
no, you said initially.
I'm a bit confused. So
you said initially that the reason why, or part of the reason why you're not going ahead with elections in Rivers is because some people have obtained court orders, and they also obtained court orders in Edo State, but you went ahead.
There was no court order in Edo State preventing us from conduct of the election. Absolutely none.
About the candidates,
there's confusion as to some of the constituencies where the elections should take place or not take place. Some are saying we should go ahead and proceed and collate and declare results. And yesterday, 2 days ago, our office in Rivers was served with 3 court orders, for example, dealing with these elections. So, but in Edo State, there was absolutely no court order saying we should.
No, I didn't say there were court orders to stop the elections. About which candidate the party was going to nominate, that's what I'm talking about. But about the one in Rivers now, and the court orders you're speaking about, have they all been vacated? Because you say you fixed date for the elections now.
No, they've not been vacated. So in that particular area, I think it's Thai local government, there's some, it hasn't been vacated, there are new orders. But in the other cases where there are court cases and likelihood of orders, I think the parties have agreed to withdraw the suits. But in Thai local government, there's an issue.